All right, if we could all rise for the pledge of, or call to order for the regular city council meeting agenda of Monday, November 22nd. Please rise for the pledge of allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, Holly, will you call the roll, please?
Lanyon.
Present.
Pratt. Bellinger.
Present.
Siebel.
Present.
Rhines.
Present.
Gilroy.
Present.
Hanson.
We did receive calls and emails from both Mr. Hanson and Mr. Pratt that they are unable to be with us this evening, so I would entertain a motion to give them excused absences.
So moved.
Thank you. Do I have support?
Second.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, motion carries. Now I'm looking for approval of this evening's agenda, barring no changes that need to be made.
I'll make a motion to approve the agenda as submitted.
Thank you. Do I have support?
Support.
Thank you. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries again. And now we have an opportunity for audience participation with a maximum of 5 minutes per presentation. I'm not seeing anyone out there, so I'll go ahead and move right along. I'm looking for approval of council meeting minutes of November 8, 2021, unless there are changes that need to be made.
Move to approve the minutes.
Thank you. Do I have support?
Support.
Thank you. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? None. Motion carries again. Now we have accounts payable, Noah.
Yes, I did review the accounts payable, and I'll have a question for Rachel after I make my motion.
All right.
But I'd like to make a motion to approve check 74913 dated 11/5/21 to check 74964 dated 11/11/21 and ACH 165-170 in a total of $204,422.37.
All right. Noah, I think the top check for 74913 was November 2nd, just to make sure.
Yep, it is.
Okay.
Friendly amendment 11-2.
Thank you.
Thank you. Sorry about that.
That's okay. And you have questions, or you
Well,
want to talk to
I
Rachel?
would like to
I'll
get
make
a
a
second.
second.
Okay, all right, thank you. So discussion?
Basically, check number 74953, the Durant Excavating ENT LCC, check dated 11/11/21. It was for a total amount of $112,05, which is half of the contract amount. It just seemed odd.
It is odd for us. As you guys may know, Modern Metal over on Corwin Road burned down earlier this year. And under the Michigan Fire Protection Act, the city has the ability to collect 25% and hold 25% of their contracted amount for removal and or demolition. And we did receive a check for that, but it was the entire contract amount of $224,000 and some change. And so we got a phone call from Durant Excavating saying, we know you got the check, how do we collect? And so I do have a copy of their contract, and that's under the act, that's what I'm required to obtain. And so then they get their first installment payment of half, and then half of the contract amount. And then once they have completed the work, they'll get the rest of it.
Okay.
So,
All right.
so it was very odd for us to receive that as well.
It was just an odd amount. Do you still retain a certain percentage after the fact of that last payment, so that if there's anything additional that needs to be done?
I believe that after we submit the rest after they're done. They're completely done. So at this point, we have pretty much signed off as far as tapping water and sewer tap. I know they had to wait for consumers to get out there and disconnect the gas, and so there's really a pretty thorough set process that they have to follow before they can even start, and so they're in that process now.
That was the only other discussion item I had.
Okay.
If
Okay.
anybody else doesn't have anything,
I think we're good.
Thank you.
All right, so we had a motion, we had a second. If there's no further discussion, Holly, will you call the roll for accounts payable this evening?
Siebel,
No. Yes.
yes, sir.
Yes. That's all right.
Rhines,
Yes.
Gilroy,
Yes.
Lanyon,
Yes.
Bellinger,
Yes.
All right, thank you. And now, we have our audit presentation for the fiscal year 2020 through 2021. Come on forward.
Thank you. I would come forward. I have a pinched nerve in my back, so
Oh.
I apologize. I'm going to sit through this one if that's okay with you.
Absolutely,
All right.
absolutely, thank you. Thank you for being here this evening with that.
No problem.
Appreciate it.
No problem. Like we did before, I've already submitted the full audit report, but tonight I brought with me a packet that pulls out just certain pages of the audit report so that we can focus just on certain areas. But if you have questions on what we're covering tonight or anything else that was in the full audit packet, just let me know. We'll make sure and get some answers for you, okay?
Thank you.
The first page is the first of two letters that RPC includes with the financial statements of the city of Williamston. This first letter is the opinion letter where we give our opinion. The second letter is the letter that we talk about the internal controls and compliance for the city. Both of those letters are here. The second letter is in the back. We'll cover that in just a little bit. This first letter is the independent auditor's report. I highlighted some of the key wording on the top. The most important paragraph is toward the bottom, the opinion paragraph. In our opinion, the financial statements referred to above present fairly. That's called an unqualified opinion. That's the highest level of assurance you can receive. So that is the wording you want to have in your financial statement opinion letter, okay? The next page, there's a couple of things I want to point out here. The first item, which is blocked off, is a new paragraph. There was a new GASB that was implemented for the city during that fiscal year. That's GASB statement number 84. And the impact on the financial statements is also included in this packet. We'll cover that in just a minute. But toward the bottom, it talks about the fact that we have also issued another report on our consideration of internal control and on compliance. That's the second letter that I mentioned. That's in the back. We'll cover that in just a minute. Now, the pages that I've included here are out of order as you would find them in the financial statements. What I like to do is cover the fund financial statement information first and then show you how that all rolls up to pages 1 and 2. This page here, this first page in the packet anyway, is page 3 out of the financial statements. This is the listing of all the governmental funds. So you have governmental funds, you have proprietary funds, and then you have component units. So the governmental funds for the city include the general fund, major street fund, and local street fund. Those are all considered major. And then the fourth one is the 2003 Act 342 bond debt. That's considered a non-major based on an analysis of the impact of the dollar figures of that fund. So this being the balance sheet, we list all the assets first, the liabilities after that, and then the difference between those two is called fund balance. So the unassigned fund balance, meaning anything that's not restricted, assigned, committed for another purpose. The unassigned fund balance for the general fund is 1.9 million. That is actually 103% of the annual expenses for the general fund. So it's a very healthy fund balance. Okay. The next page is the statement of revenues, expenditures, and changes in fund balance. This is for the governmental funds, again, those 4 funds that I mentioned. This is the income statement, if you will. We list the revenues first, the expenses after that, and then we also have to list a category called other financing sources and uses. And then we come down to the most important line there, the change in fund balance. That's either the income or the loss. And I highlighted those. For the general fund, there was actually an addition to the general fund balance of $475,000 for the year. Major street fund had an addition of $54,000. Local street fund had an addition of $65,000. Okay. Now again, those are the governmental funds. This next page is page 7. These list the proprietary funds. The proprietary funds are run like a business. This is where you charge other people for a service. You have the sewer fund and the water fund. That's where you charge your third parties for it. And then the internal service fund is a fund that charges the other funds for services. This is the statement of net position or the balance sheet. Again, we list the assets first, deferred outflows, then the liabilities and deferred inflows. And then the difference between all of those comes down to what's called net position at the bottom. And then if you turn the next page, this is the income statement for the proprietary funds. We list all the revenues first, expenses after that, then non-operating revenues and expenses. And we come down to a change in net position. We have the sewer fund listed separately from the water fund, separately from the internal service fund. So the change in net position for the sewer fund was a loss of about $24,000. The water fund had an increase of $113,000. And then the internal service fund had a loss of about $5,500. Also below that, we had a prior period adjustment this year. We had, during the audit, noticed some adjustments that we had to make for accumulated depreciation for the capital assets. So that's where that is seen in there. Now this next page is page 1. This is the page that takes all that information and rolls it up to the front. The governmental activities column takes those 4 governmental funds that we talked about, plus the internal service fund, and then it adds to it all of the long-term activity in those funds, like the capital assets, any of the loans or long-term activity that's included in there. This is the statement of net position, so it's the balance sheet, lists all the assets first, deferred outflows, liabilities, deferred inflows, and then comes down to net position. The business type activities that you see there is just the water fund and the sewer fund pulled together, and that's what that is there. For the governmental activities, some of the long-term information that was added to that, you'll see under the non-current liabilities, you have bonds payable that are represented there. There's also a portion of net pension liability recorded there, which is over $1 million. And then the net other post-employment benefit liability, which is about $300,000. Okay? And this page also includes information on the component units. We have several component units. We have another page that details the individual components units for the city. This next page looks a little different, but it is an income statement for page 1. And if you take a look at the bottom, you go 4 lines up, the change in net position, and then you go over to the governmental activities. So again, if those 4 governmental funds plus the internal service fund were run as a business, all the activity was included, the activity for the year would result in an addition to the bottom line of $517,000. And the business type activities, that's the sewer and the water together, added to the bottom line by $89,000, and again you can see that prior period adjustment just below that. Okay? The next page is a statement of fiduciary net position. This is for the fiduciary funds. Normally I don't include this page when we talk at the board meeting, but this is where the change in accounting principle came into play. The fiduciary fund is the fund where the city collects all of the taxes and then disperses it to the other municipalities and then takes their own as well. If you turn the next page, this is a new statement. The statement of changes in fiduciary net position was required with GASB 84. So I wanted to show you how that impacted your financial statements for the city. We had to include the additions, and then the deductions, and then the total change in the net position at the bottom. Okay. This next page is page 12 out of the financial statements. This is the combining statement of all of the component units. So here's the detail on the component units. This is the balance sheet, if you will, listing the assets and the liabilities. Your component units are the Economic Development Corporation, Tax Increment Finance Authority 2A and 2B, and then the Downtown Development Authority. That total over to the right is the same total you'll see on page 1. This is just a detail of that. And then the next page is a detail of the income and the expenses for the component units as well. Okay. Page 27 out of the notes is the next page. I wanted to show you at the top. This is the detail of long-term debt activity for the year. And again, we have to break that out between the governmental activities, the business type activities, and the component unit. You'll see under the business type activities, there was an increase, or under the additions line, 743, a large deduction as well for that activity. Okay. Next page is page 38 of the notes. The first item I've highlighted there again relates to GASB 84. We had to restate the net position, the beginning net position for the fiduciary fund in order to get that on there. So I just wanted to point that out. That's a new disclosure. Also, note 15 discusses the prior period adjustment. And then note 15, we like to make sure that we include any changes that are coming next year for the city. GASB statement number 87 will apply, and that deals with leases. A lot of operating leases that have been held by cities and villages and municipalities will have to convert over to capital leases, which means you actually carry the obligation or the loan, now you would call it, and the asset that you're leasing on your financial statements. So that's coming next year. And then this last page is the second letter that we include, the letter where we talk about internal control and in relation to compliance. Highlighted some of the key wording. We audited the financial statements and the related notes. Under the internal control paragraph, we did consider the city's internal control to determine our audit procedures, but not necessarily for the purpose of expressing an opinion on how effectively they're working. Okay? And then I've highlighted in the next 2 paragraphs down, during our audit, we did not identify deficiencies in internal control we considered to be material weaknesses. And then under the compliance paragraph, the results of our tests disclose no instances of non-compliance that we're required to report to you. So if during our audit, we had items that rose to the level that are required to be communicated to the board, you would have found those in that letter, but there were none this year, again. And while I have your attention, again, I want to thank Rachel and her staff for all their hard work. We did the audit remotely again this year, and it went very well. We appreciate the fact that she's always ready and well-prepared and does a great job.
Well, we're very lucky to have such a very competent and thorough and, right to the penny staff. I can't thank Rachel and Ann enough, and everybody else that contributes everything to those numbers.
Yes.
And thank you so much for making it out this evening. Again, appreciate it.
No problem.
And it's always a pleasure to have you here.
Thank you.
For these reports.
Thank you. If you have any questions on the information, if you look through it later, feel free to call our office. We're more than happy to talk to you about it.
Absolutely.
Okay?
Thank you.
Thanks.
All right, well, that concludes the audit presentation for the fiscal year 2020 through 2021. So we'll move right along to our action items. Our first action item is the appointment of Jacob Imets to the Economic Development Corporation, TIPA 2A, TIPA 2B, for a term to expire 6/30 of 2024. Do I have a motion? Thank you. Do I have support?
Second.
Thank you very much. Any discussion? Holly, will you call the roll, please?
Gilroy,
Yes.
Lanyon,
Yes.
Bellinger,
Yes.
Siebel,
Yes.
Rhines,
Yes.
All right. Next, an important action item is action on the results of our city manager interviews. So I just want to briefly go over for our viewing audience. We received 12 applications for the open position of city manager for the city of Williamston. We were able to ask 6 candidates to participate in our first round of interview questions. We did have 2 candidates withdraw, so that left us with a field of 4. Based on that, we held 2 first round interviews last week on Tuesday evening and Thursday. 3 of those were in person, 1 we did remote Zoom, and that worked out, I think, as well as it could. So based on that, we received our scoring today from Holly, and so I'd like to go ahead and open up discussion with council members for who we would like to move forward for our second round of interviews, which is going to be more in-depth questioning to keep moving this process along. The candidates that we had were Mr. John Hannafin, Mr. John Stopples, Mr. David Rowley, and Mr. Fred Ventresco. So I would entertain open discussion.
Mayor, how many do you plan on calling back for second round? Are you doing 2, or are you doing 4, are you doing 3? What's your thought process?
Based on our candidate pool, I would welcome bringing back our top 3. I think that that would make a good candidate pool. I think that each of those candidates had good qualities based on their answers to the questions. And so with that being said, the top would be John Hannafin, John Stopples, and David Rowley. And so if there's any discussion that we want to have regarding those candidates, or questions, or concerns from the council members, or,
Sounds good to me.
okay,
I think those were our top 3 candidates, I have no problem.
okay?
So do you need a motion to have?
Yes, yep, so I would entertain a motion for those 3 candidates. Since he's sitting right here next to me.
And please correct me if I'm wrong in this motion, Holly. But I would make a motion that we ask our city clerk to invite back, I can't remember, I don't have their first names written down, Mr. John Hannafin, Mr. John Stopples, and Mr. David Rowley to attend second interviews for the city manager position for the city of Williamston.
Does that sound okay, Tim? One thing that we also discussed, and I'll ask for that support, the possibility of doing a city community tour prior to the interview. And who we could identify that could accompany those candidates, and we could stagger it out so that they are here the same day as the interview, so they don't have to come back for 2 separate appointments. Because I think that would be important. It's something we didn't do the first time when we brought in Corey as city manager. And I think there is value in that, seeing our facilities prior to. So I'd like to have further discussion on that, how we would put that together and who we could have do the tour.
I'm good with that, but to back up, I'll second this motion.
All right, thank you. Thank you so much. If there's no further discussion regarding the candidates that we would like to move forward, I would ask Holly for the roll call.
Lanyon,
Yes.
Bellinger,
Yes.
Seabolt,
Yes.
Rhines,
Yes.
Gilroy.
Yes. All right. Holly, what do we feel the anticipated dates for second round would be?
Probably next week, that's
Okay.
either Tuesday, Wednesday, or Thursday.
Okay, all right. So we'll watch for that information to come through. All right, our next action item, 9C, is to set the public hearing for the Downtown Development Authority Plan Amendment for January 10th, 2022 at 7:02 p.m.
So moved.
Thank you. Do I have support?
Support.
If there's no discussion, Holly, will you call the roll, please?
Bellinger,
Yes.
Seabolt,
Yes.
Rhines,
Yes.
Gilroy,
Yes.
Lanyon.
Yes.
All right. Our next action item is the 2022 health insurance renewal. And Rachel, you put together a memo for us, so I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to you.
Sure. So we're proposing a change this year. As my memo details, when we received the renewal back in mid-October for the existing health insurance plan, it was almost a 9% increase. And we budgeted at 10%, which we normally do. We don't ever want to pay 10%, but we try to be conservative on that. So we requested that CG Financial send out bids, and it came back with a change in the provider from Blue Care Network to Physicians Health Plan. Would actually, in a comparable plan, would save the city around 8%. We also, excuse me, we also asked them to take a look at network-wise, and the network is still an HMO, and so it's a little bit more exclusive, but there is still coverage throughout the entire state, as is our plan now. The biggest change with this, other than it being a different provider, is they have co-insurance, which we're not used to. Right now, we have a plan where once your deductible is met, you're covered at 100%. With this new plan, the deductible does go down for $500. However, there would be a co-insurance of up to 10% after that, with a maximum of, I think it was, I'm sorry. There's a maximum out-of-pocket expense with this. That's why I proposed that we would increase that health savings account contribution to help kind of cushion that a little bit. And so the exposure to the employee still is not as high as it could be if we just went for just the renewal. With that additional health savings account contribution, we'd still be realizing a savings of 4.5% over what we're currently paying. And so I guess that's kind of the first part of this. It's a big change and it's gonna be a lot of questions, I'm sure, with our staff. But we didn't wanna propose or put anything out to staff until we knew for sure that council did wanna proceed with making the change.
Okay.
If you do approve this tonight, we will be sending information out to staff this week, letting them know what the change will be, and then kind of moving forward with some educational pieces. COVID makes it a little difficult with getting together as a group of employees, but we can certainly do that on a smaller scale if need be.
Okay, all right, thank you for your explanation, Rachel. Questions?
Yes, Rachel, the health savings account, the contribution from the employee side, that's all deferred tax, correct?
Yes.
Okay, cool. Any other questions for Rachel?
Have we looked at, I mean, so you kind of mentioned it, provider coverage, I mean, is it relatively the same, or do we think they're going to be able to keep their same people, or?
In this area, yes, I do, and I will, there is kind of a second piece of this that I got today. We have one retiree who lives in northern Michigan, and he contacted me, apparently he went through council packet or something, I don't know, heard it through the grapevine, that we were gonna be making a switch and recommending PHP. And so he kind of went on a website and said that his doctor does not participate in the network, his wife's oncologist does not participate in network. And so he had proposed the question to me if the council would consider, instead of paying for his health insurance premium, which is what the personnel manual says that we are obligated to do until they're reached the age of 65, he's wondering if the council would consider paying him a stipend that's equal to that monthly cost on a monthly basis so that he can go out to the health exchange program through the federal government to get his own health insurance that would be in his area. And so that's kind of a two-parter for this tonight.
Okay.
And so that would be another consideration for you.
Okay, all right, any questions regarding that for this retiree's request?
Tim, is that allowable? That's my
That's
question.
the first question.
I think it's,
Right.
it's a matter to go over with your plan administrator, but it's my understanding, and I did speak to Rachel about this earlier, that you do pay certain employees in lieu of health insurance. Say if their spouse
Sure.
had a plan,
Yeah.
you wouldn't be paying theirs, but you would be giving them the benefit
Sure.
for that. And the caution to use in this instance is, once they go off the insurance, can they get back on?
Right.
Even during a period of open enrollment in the future. So I think they have to very cautiously make that decision if the city is willing to go that route. But I don't really see a difference between that and payment in lieu of insurance when they're otherwise covered.
Right.
And it won't cost you anymore.
Right.
In fact, there might be even a savings if they go off and it goes up next time.
Right. So then, what I'm hearing is that we would do a stipend. If we were to bid this out again and we went back to Blue Care Network and that retirees' physicians participated, they may have an option to do open enrollment instead of receiving a stipend?
So I don't know the answer to that,
Okay.
because right now, when it's time to retire, you have to be on the medical plan when you retire in order to receive the benefit
I see.
at time of retirement. So I proposed the question to our plan administrator, and they haven't got back with me yet this afternoon, as to if a person goes off, a retiree goes off, are they done? And I did mention that to the retiree, that I was
Yes.
checking into that. So I would wanna give him all of that information
Right.
before he made any type of
Right.
decision. And we have done, special allowances, if you will, for retirees. I know, a few years back, we had a retiree who was a guardian to a grandchild.
Yep.
And we allowed him to have his grandchild stay on the plan and be reimbursed, much like we would a spouse.
Right.
And so we have made special case, special scenario cases
Yes.
for retirees in the past. And so that's why I didn't see it as much different from just kind of a special case.
Okay. Tim, will we need two motions then? One to consider the change and then one for the, okay, so we'll need two motions, one. And we're gonna get feedback from the plan administrator to make sure that we can do this. So it would be contingent on that feedback. Okay.
So
The second question wasn't on the agenda, so do we have to amend?
Well, I think
Retirees.
it can cover the umbrella
Well,
of
but
2022.
couldn't you also just approve this one, and when she gets the information, bring it back at the next meeting?
Well, ask what's the timing on that.
I think it's timing, because if we wait until the December meeting, that may be too late, correct?
Yes,
So,
so
Okay.
for PHP, we
Yep.
have to submit documentation, all the enrollment paperwork by the 30th of November.
okay.
And so it would be too late to make a change that quickly.
So I think Brandon's
I think
correct, it
this
could be
is
under the
broad enough,
umbrella of the
yeah.
renewal, we just need to have that additional,
Yeah. I mean,
requested action.
That's fine, I just wanted to make sure.
Perfect, thank you. Does that mean you're gonna do
I'll do the first, but.
it? Okay.
I'll make a motion to approve the Physicians Health Plan HSA HMO exclusive gold $1,500 plan with Blue Dental with a $1,000/$2,000 health savings account contribution for the 2022 calendar year.
Thank you so much. Do I have support for that?
Support.
Thank you. If there's no further discussion, Holly, will you call the roll for this action?
Bellinger,
Yes.
Siebel,
Yes.
Rhines,
Yes.
Gilroy,
Yes.
Lanyon,
Yes.
All right. Now, who would like to tackle the second motion?
I have a proposed motion.
You do? That would be
I
fantastic,
do,
Rachel.
since I didn't
Please
have it
read
in
that
memo-
for us,
I didn't have it
please.
in memo format, so,
That's okay.
and I'm sure Tim will say, no, that's not right, or change it.
I don't know.
So, okay,
Yeah.
so it would be to pay Alan Dolly a monthly stipend equal to the cost of his group health plan coverage for plan year 2022.
Perfect.
I'll make that motion with the friendly amendment that we, or I guess maybe it's not needed to be a friendly amendment, but that we stipulate to him that it's based on, he may not be able to come back onto the plan, everything that.
Contingent on
Plan
plan
administrator.
Plan
administrator
administrator, yeah.
approval.
Yes.
Yes, so I would make that motion.
All right. Excellent. Thank you so much.
I'll support it.
Thank you. All right. If there's no further discussion, then Holly, will you call the roll for that action?
Bellinger,
Yes.
Siebel,
Yes.
Rhines,
Yes.
Gilroy,
Yes.
Lanyon,
Yes.
Awesome. All right. So, Rachel, if you can just follow up with us, let us know what the plan administrator feedback comes. That would be great.
I sure
Thank you.
can.
All right. Our next action item is 9E, which is the MDOT Transportation Alternatives Program Agreement Contract Modification. Rachel?
Sure. So this actually came before the DDA at their meeting last week. It is basically finalizing out the MDOT contract for the boardwalk. One of the reasons for the change is there needed to be more securings, better fastenings on the fence. I think you've probably heard about this before. And when I talked to Scott today, just to reiterate, he said, look, I went down there, I took a look at it, and I already could see that we were going to have some problems right away. He said, now you could say, why didn't they catch that in the initial design? This is actually kind of the first time they've done a design quite like this, and it's kind of a trial and error thing. And so we think if we had put these specifications in there, our initial bid would have been higher to begin with. And so it's just a contract amendment. DDA board did approve it and recommend approval at this level.
All right, great. Any questions for Rachel on this? All right, I'm looking for that motion.
I'll make a motion to approve the MDOT Transportation Alternatives Program Agreement Contract Modification in an amount not to exceed $8,251.20.
All right, do I have support for this action?
Second.
Thank you. If there's no other discussion, Holly, will you call the roll, please?
Bellinger,
Yes.
Siebel,
Yes.
Rhines,
Yes.
Gilroy,
Yes.
Lanning,
Yes.
All right, our last action item of the evening is the Pathway Project Construction Engineering Change Order Number 1. Rachel again.
And this also went to DDA last week. DDA did make a budget amendment in their October meeting to cover this, so that their portion would be, not go over budget. The general fund parks budget and the major street sidewalks will be impacted by this, but not enough to need a budget amendment.
Okay, all right. If there's no questions for Rachel or further explanation needed, I'm looking for that requested action.
I'll move to approve construction engineering change order number 1, Spicer Group for the Pathway Project to an amount not to exceed $7,500 with funding of $797.50 from the DDA Fund 4807 from the General Fund Parks Department and $1,895.50 for the Major Streets Sidewalk Department.
Thank you so much.
Second.
All right, thank you very much. If there's no further discussion, Holly, will you call the roll?
Siebel,
Yes.
Rhines,
Yes.
Gilroy,
Yes.
Lanning,
Yes.
Bellinger,
Yes.
All right, that concludes our action items for this evening. Moving along, we did not receive any discussion items. We do have correspondence, which was the annual report on the status of tax increment financing plan, which certainly if you do have questions regarding this, you can reach out to Rachel. She'll be able to answer. She did include a memo in here for that. So we'll keep moving right along to department head reports. Rachel, interim city manager report.
All right, so we're gonna talk a little bit later about contract negotiations, so I'll save that. As you can see, and Dan can eagerly report, the zoning board of appeals met for the first time in 18 months, and they approved the interpretation on the setback and the driveway, sidewalk for the project going in at 2360 East Raleigh Road. We are anticipating a development agreement between the city and the developer of that project. Scott is in contact with both developers and their engineer, their shared engineer, and so he is working with them to get some type of an agreement in place.
Great.
So hopefully we will have that to you at the next meeting.
Excellent. Any questions for Rachel regarding her memo that she included? All right, great. Well, Rachel, thank you so much. Chief?
Everything's going great at the PD. Just a reminder that December 4th from 10 to 2, we're doing fill-a-cop card at DNW. So officers will be there. And also on that evening, we're doing the light parade.
Okay.
So we're all planned up, geared up, ready to go. And we're good to go.
All right, great. Thanks so much. All right, that concludes the department reports, so I'll move right along for committee, subcommittee reports. Chuck, you'll get assigned to a board or commission after the first of the year. So typically what I do is I go around, if anybody's had a board or commission meeting, I ask them to give us a brief overview of what was discussed. That way our viewing audience knows what's happening in meetings other than our televised council meetings. So Dan, I'll start with you.
So we had our first zoning board of appeals meeting in quite some time. It was in relation to a new development on Raleigh Road. This is a parcel that was originally slated to be phase 2 of the Red Cedar, not total senior living condo association, but older, I think it's 50, 55 and something up, something similar to that. So it was always intended to be a multi-unit development. We were looking at an interpretation, 2 interpretations of zoning. Basically, all the utilities are located to the rear of this property and not up near Raleigh Road. So in order to start the development, this developer is creating a private drive and then building off of that private drive instead of building off of Raleigh Road. So they wanted us to interpret the zoning ordinance to find out if the setback should go off of that private drive or if it should go off of Raleigh Road. We felt that it was interpreted correctly to go off of that private drive instead of making them do the setbacks all the way from Raleigh Road, which would have required them to bring the utilities from the rear of that property all the way to the front for the first phase of this development. There was also a piece about requiring sidewalks between all the different units, and we felt that the sidewalks leading from the house to the garage was enough, and they did not need connecting sidewalks, again, because it was a private drive and not a public roadway.
Right.
700 and some feet of sidewalk.
Right.
Yeah. Yes, it would have required the sidewalk. If we'd added the sidewalk, there is a much contested tree line to the rear of this property that separates this development from the next subdivision over. And if you added in those sidewalks, it would have required them to eat into the tree line at the rear of that property, which the next development over was very much not in favor of.
Yep.
And I would have to say that, you know, I think they're trying to keep the entire parcel as harmonious as possible because of having existing developments on the west side and on the east side. The area of concern was more so on the east side, which is next to the Red Cedar community. And this road will be maintained by the property owner. Should note that these are going to be fourplex, so there will be 12 units total, 3 buildings. The design is very similar to what Red Cedar has already. Again, this was intended to be a second phase. It is a new property owner. And so I think that he and his engineers have done their homework, have been able to come and articulate to the city, planning commission and ZBA what their intentions are. We've definitely heard concerns from the residents surrounding it, and those have been taken into consideration. And so I hope that this project just keeps moving forward in a positive motion. Brandon?
No.
Noah?
I'll withhold my comments for this evening.
All right, thank you. So I will go ahead and make my comments. No, we're going into audience participation, which we don't have anybody in the audience, so we'll jump right to council member comments. So Chuck, you're new. Council member comments. If there's anything you want to share with the viewing public or with council, or you can always pass too.
I don't have anything at this time.
All right. Dan?
No comments, John.
Brandon?
No comment?
No?
No, I'm good.
All right. I have a list because after council member comments, we are going into closed session. So this is our second to last council meeting for the year. So I'm going to go through these very quickly because we do have a lot of events that are coming up over this holiday season. So first of all, I want to make sure that our community still is out there supporting our restaurants, our retail shops, our service shops. You know, you've done a tremendous job continuing to support our community, our businesses throughout this whole COVID 18 months. I ask that you continue to support them as we go into this holiday season. Staffing is still short in many aspects, and so patience and support, I'm sure, would be greatly appreciated by our entire downtown district as well as our businesses that surround the downtown area. Both the Sun Theater and the Williamston Theater have reopened. Right now, the Williamson Theater has this wonderful light that is showing performances between November 18th, December 19th. You can go online and purchase those tickets. They are observing social distance seating for those performances, and this was a long time coming for both of those 2 businesses here in town. I think they were our last businesses to finally reopen and have public come in, so please support them. Chief had already mentioned it, but we do have our Williamston Chamber of Commerce. It is the 24th Light Parade, which will be December 4th, so that's exciting. We took a pause last year. There was no parade, however, Santa did still come and visit us last year, so Santa is scheduled to be here again this year for our parade. So I would just ask that the community come out, be respectful. It's all about the community and coming together. So we look forward to that. We have Shop Local Saturday, which is the 27th, which is this Saturday, right after Thanksgiving holiday. I'd ask that, the community just support our retailers and services here for gift cards, gifts. There is going to be a Keller's Holiday Art and Gift Show on Saturday as well. The Williamston Red Cedar Garden Club has wreaths and greens for sale this year. They did not do this last year because of COVID, but you can find that information on their Facebook page. The Williamston Chamber of Commerce has a flower box decorating contest. So the flower boxes that were decorated over the summer, you have an opportunity to participate in that again, so that the downtown area will be decorated in time for the parade. Chief mentioned the fill a cop car. Those go directly to the Howard Dahlstrom Food Bank here in town. It serves our local community members of the community that are in need. Monetary donations will be accepted as well. Dollars go so much farther, but there will also be an item list that you can go into DNW, purchase those items, and then put those in the cop car. Let me make sure I got everything. Oh, one last thing. This past Sunday, yesterday, the new gazebo was dedicated down at Old Mill Park. This was a gift from the Williamston Red Cedar Garden Club in observance of their 95th anniversary that we celebrated last year. And so that gazebo is there. I think we are almost done with that boardwalk, right, Rachel? We've got the Chillico memorial bench that's going to be placed. But other than that, I think we are almost 100% done. So it was very exciting to have the dedication for the new gazebo. And Corey and his family came because that was one of the projects, it was really nice to see them and they're doing well. Yesterday was the last day to put your leaves out, so don't put any more leaves out because DPW was out today picking them up. They'll be finishing cleaning up through this week, but leaf collection is done. I think that's it for my comments. I hope-
Well, Kiwanis is also picking up the flags over Williamston and Sterling.
Okay, and Kiwanis still has nuts available,
Yes,
correct?
Yes.
Yes, so if there's any service organizations that have anything going on, check their Facebook pages or their dedicated web pages for that. But like I said, this is our second to last council meeting, and there's a lot of activity that's going to be happening over the next 2 weeks before we gather again. I wanted to make sure that we got that out there for everybody. So with that, I would entertain a motion to go into closed session at 7:47.
I'll move to go into closed session for a strategy discussion regarding collective bargaining as printed by MCL 15268C.
Thank you, do I have support?
Support.
All right, thank you.
Hunter,
Yes.
Siebel,
Yes.
Rhines,
Yes.
Gilroy,
Yes,
Lanyon.
Yes.
all right, thank you. I will go ahead and call us back into session at 8:06 for this evening. And I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Support?
Support.
All right, we are adjourned at 8:07.